Today on Locked On Red Wings, would Aaron Ekblad fix Detroit's defensive woes?
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. Scotty's host over at Locked On Tigers, as well as a sports writer for C&G newspapers, while I am a color commentator for Oakland University, ACHA D1 men's hockey. Scotty, it's nice to have you back, and you came back at a perfect time watching that Tarek Skubal, Greg Maddux, the most strikeouts ever in a Greg Maddux. That was an insane performance, and I didn't have any internet yet at my new place, so I missed the game. It was fantastic.
Wow, that's kind of messed up. I think maybe your wife was more upset about that than you, though.
No, I was mad too, dude. Well, as much as she's a Tigers fan, I am too.
Mad. I just feel like she was more mad. You know,
I tried hooking up the hotspot to the TV so we could maybe watch it on replay. How long do those games? Off topic. How long do those replays last on that Roku channel? Do you know?
I have zero clue, brother.
Because she really wants to watch that game, and I kind of do too. And we missed it.
Yeah, yeah.
Talk to your people.
That out. Yeah.
Talk to your people.
We can make that happen.
Scotty, today we have a fun one for the people. Aaron Ekblad, another free agency profile. I guess we should say pending free agent profile. We've talked about him for now a couple seasons in a row, all the way back to last year's trade deadline, because he had 1 year left on his deal. He is, kind of always hurt, which we'll talk about, but he's, when he does play, a huge impact player that's going to command a lot of money in free agency. It's not really a conversation of whether or not the Red Wings should pursue him, because they absolutely should. It's about what does he bring to the table if the Red Wings do sign him. And Scotty, why don't you lead us off? Let's talk about some of the pros behind 29-year-old Aaron Ekblad.
Well, there's a lot. I think a lot of the conversation, aside from just the type of player he is, then ties into fit on the Red Wings. And he is just so good at his job. And when we talk about the blue line for this team, that's a huge area of concern going into the summer and going into next season, right? We've been talking about it for months already, and it's not even June yet. We really want this front office and this team to address the blue line depth. And really, I say depth, talent too. It's not, you know what I mean? Outside of Seider and maybe, hopefully Edvinsson continues trending in the right direction. It's not it's too many cooks in the kitchen because they're all really, really good. It's just they need more talent down the lineup card on the blue line. And I think that, Ekblad, yes, that would be a fantastic addition. It would solve said problem in that regard. I think the bigger question and something I know that we planned on talking about a lot this episode was just his fit and his value, right? Obviously, a lot of teams are going to be interested in him. A lot of teams should be interested in him. He's going to be a really good defensive-minded defenseman, which is something that this team desperately needs more of. But are you willing to pay, A, the price tag, given some of the cons that we'll talk about later, and B, where does he fit in the lineup card, and does it make sense to spend X amount of dollars for someone who I don't want to say is blocked by Seider, but you got to find a way for those two to coexist.
Right. I mean, the massive pro is you have on your right side locked down a legitimate top four. Right. On the right side, specifically, because Moritz Seider is Moritz Seider. We don't need to sing more of the praises of what he can bring to the table, but that's your lockdown number one guy who plays top PK units, top power play units. You have Edvinsson on the left side. You still need one more left side D. But correct. Now you solve your issue. Short,
that's a solid top three. That's I think that top three could go toe-to-toe with just about anybody in the division or the conference.
I mean, this is a guy with the Florida Panthers who played the most power play minutes out of anyone on the team, despite only playing 56 games. That's not time on the ice average per game. That is total time on the ice. He played more than anyone else on the Florida Panthers defense on the power play this season alone. 150 minutes of power play time in 56 games. That is 50 more minutes than Nate Schmidt, who played 80. So he's very clearly their power play unit 1 quarterback. So you got another guy to your power play that's already really good. I talked a little bit about it with Greg on Grindline last week. It's like, okay, your power play is really good, but really it was that first unit that was very good. The second unit needs a little bit more oomph. So he would come in and he would help add to that. Then he was also one of their top PK guys. I think time on the ice per game, because this is where the 56 games come in, he didn't get the total over everyone else, but he was right there with the 3 other guys that were above him. He averaged over 2 minutes a night on the PK. So you get a guy who you can play in all situations. He has a career high of 57 points. And that 57-point season, Scotty, came in a shortened season for him where he only played 61 games. 57 points in 61 games. He had an incredible year, 42 assists. So this is a guy who has a high offensive ceiling, is going to get you at least 30 points more than likely, 30 to 40 points, which is, again, very good for a two-way defenseman, which he is. He's a little bit more offensive leaning, but he is a two-way defenseman who can play in all situations. Yeah. And then, Scotty, the most important thing that he brings to this team that we lack is a bully mentality. Right. This is a guy that's going to come in, and he is going to make teams think twice when they're coming down the wing. He is going to stand up for your teammates. He's going to do stuff after the whistle. And here's the thing. I said this on Grindline, and I will say it again. He is a dirty player. And I do not condone the dirty play. But I can freely admit we need somebody like that who will toe the line. Like, I watched him against Carolina in Game 2, I think it was, where they were up big. Carolina scored a goal late in the game to just bring it within like 2 or something like that. And he elbowed the player in the back of the head after he scored the goal down the ice. I'm like, that is a dirty play, completely unnecessary, but it makes players afraid. I'm not condoning it, but this team is so soft to play against. And Aaron Ekblad, and here's the thing, is like, I don't want goons for the sake of goons. I want a guy who is a grit player who can also play the game of hockey, and he can do both. He's a high-level player, a top 4 right-shot defenseman, 6'4", 220 pounds, who can play the game, but also has that physical style that'll really put the fear of God in the other team. Those are all huge green flags that this team needs.
Yeah, and I think, man, yes, like I completely agree with you. I think, as I said earlier, it really just comes down to value and fit, and whether those two conversations kind of marry to make sense.
Yeah, let's talk about that here. We'll go to a quick break, and we'll talk about the cons, because I think this is the first guy we've spoken about that has legitimate red flags that do give me pause when talking about him, right? With Mitch Marner, right, he had cons that were fair and valid for people to bring up. But we said the pros so heavily outweigh those cons that they're worth bringing on board for a guy who's going to score you 100 points in a season. Right. Gavrikov really didn't have any legitimate cons. He was all pro. The only real con was how much of it is the team he plays for and how much is him.
Right.
Ekblad has legitimate cons to talk about, and we'll talk about that next on segment 2 of Lockdown Red Wings.
Got to talk to y'all today about our friends over at Wonderful Pistachios. If you're looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious, crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats, so they'll keep you feeling fuller longer. Personally, as you all know by now, I love the no shells variety. It is the perfect grab and go snack for busy days. Whether I'm snacking at my desk, on a road trip, or just need a quick protein boost, they're always my go-to. And if you love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, well, the in-shell options are a classic favorite as well. So get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Oh, man.
Oh, he's out of practice. He's out of practice. He got there you go.
Disaster. I was clicking buttons 8 times. That was just a disaster.
You know what's so funny too is last week while you were out, there were like 3 straight days where Wonderful Pistachios was the read. And so like when I'm reading it, I'm like, Scotty loves. I'm like, I don't. I'm allergic to pistachios because I want to be, transparent with our listeners that, I do not. I'm sure I would enjoy them if I wasn't allergic. But I'm like, Scotty tells me that he really enjoys this product. But yes, segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Aaron Ekblad has a slew of pros, but he also comes with a list of cons. And I think first and foremost, the biggest con we should talk about is his injury history, Scotty.
For sure. Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's, I think, again, as you kind of said before the break, among the players that have been covered so far, that's a very legitimate con to have. I mean, just looking at his games played just kind of straight up over the last 5 or 6 years, he has eclipsed 70 games played once, and that was 22-23, and he hasn't played a full season since 2018-19. Like that, I think that is incredibly fair to point out. Each of the last 2 years was between 50. I was going to say between, and then just read the 2 totals that he played. He played in 51 and 56 games in the last 2 seasons. Like it's not as though he is just, I don't know, like not playing period or missing over half of like seasons regularly. But I mean, there seems to be kind of a patented, okay, well, like Ekblad's going to be out for the next month and a half to 2 months, kind of every single year.
Yeah, so it's like when you do sign him, if the Red Wings were to sign him, let me rephrase, when he does play, you're getting a high-level player. It's just going to be about 2/3, 3/4 of the season. And this year, there was obviously the other pin, right? That was 20-game suspension. I don't know what pin means, but another, I don't know what that means. But it was a 20-game suspension for PED usage. Of course, the player always denies it. Honestly, I'm not really concerned about the whole PED thing. I said it again with the crossover with Grindline. It's not like he didn't commit a felony. It's a PED suspension. He served the suspension. He was out for 20 games. He's come back. He's been a huge impact player in the playoffs. So for me, it's like it's under the. If anything, if it drives his value down, even better. If you're a team that's bidding for him on the free agent market, it's a non-factor for me. But the injury concerns are very real, and that's the thing you have to take into account, especially when you consider the fact that he is 29 years old. Fun fact. We view these players at like 29, 30 as like on the back end. It's like they're in their prime, but they're going to start their back end of their career. They're a little bit older, right? And then I looked at his birth date. He was born a month after me, like to the day, February 7th, 1996. I was like, oh my God, that's right. I'm past my prime. Like crazy. Like these players are the same age as me, if not younger, but that's neither here nor there. The injury stuff is just so valid when talking about Aaron Ekblad, and it is something that gives me massive pause. But it's just, will the impact he has when he's in the lineup for 60, maybe 70 games outweigh the void that he leaves when he's not there? That's the question we have to ask ourselves. And it's one of those things where if they sign him, I'd be cool with it. I could defend it. I'd probably cheer for it. Actually, I will cheer for it if they sign him. But I will have that in the back of my mind as something to watch out for as the seasons go along.
Yeah, and obviously as a player gets older, that becomes more and more of kind of a red flag, right? Like it's one thing if you're healthy all throughout your 20s and then you hit your mid-late 30s and start getting banged up. Like he's already in his mid-20s been hurt very, very consistently. And so I'm sure that there's a crowd out there that thinks that might only get worse and that's kind of a scary signing. The thing is, if you want Ekblad, you are going to have to pay for him. I promise you that other GMs, on the free agent market are not going to shy away from giving him a fat contract because of this. That they understand the risks. They also understand that he is a high caliber player and is a top tier defenseman in this league. So like if it's something that you have to just kind of like take on the chin. Like you understand the risks, but so do the other GMs that are not going to shy away from signing him and giving him a big contract. That's just the price of doing business and the price of bringing in a talent of that caliber.
Yes, and that is, you're right. There, he's going to get a fat contract. And let's talk about some of those projections now too, because Evolving Hockey has the biggest likelihood of him signing a 6-year or 7-year deal, both at $7.7 million per season, which, Scotty, especially with the rising cap, I would take that in a heartbeat. That's only $200,000 more than he's making right now, this instant. Obviously, you would have the concern of 6 or 7 years being the more concerning part, right? With his injury history, is how is that going to look in his age 35, 36 season? But this is a guy with his impact that if he makes it the free agent market, he's going to be getting a max length deal. I have no doubts about it, especially with, even though he's got the injury history, when he does play, the impact that he has, a lot of people recognize that. And like you said, he is going to get a fat payday, and there's going to be a lot of general managers who are not going to be afraid to give that to him. But the one thing to me, Scotty, is, again, $7.7 million a year. That's a steal, in my opinion, for Aaron Ekblad. I just don't think he'll sign for that. And I had this thought with Gavrikov conversation too, where it had him at 5.6. It feels with like an underpayment, especially with the rising cap. I feel like Ekblad's going to get up to $9 million. And once you get to that $9 million category, that's where I begin to shy away from Ekblad, mainly too because this is a top pairing defenseman when you already have that insider that you're paying 8.5. So it's like all those factors combined that add to my pause.
No, and that's exactly it. It's all those. So it's the fact that you would have to pay this guy a ton of money, and he would end up probably being your second pair right side. Like I'm imagining you're not moving Sider off of top pair. So you're going to spend that much money on a second pair defenseman that also you would kind of expect to miss, a month or two every season. Like all of those things put together is where the value comes in to question. If this was if any one of those three things were different, I feel like it would kind of not even be a conversation, right? Like if you did need a top pair right side, then it's like, okay, we don't really care what the risks are. Go pay him money, and if he's hurt, he's hurt. If you knew that he was going to play 82 for the next 5 to 7 years, you'd probably be like, okay, like we'll just pull the trigger on whatever. Or if you knew that he was going to come in and you didn't have a Moritz Seider and you knew that he was just going to be the top pair guy, then you know what I mean? Like if any of those three things, I just repeat two of them. Anyway, if any of those three things are different and aren't as much of a factor. Oh, price. Yeah, that was the other one. Yeah, obviously, if that's lower, then everyone's going to be willing to do it. So if any of those three things are different, it's probably not a conversation, but it's all those things combined that I understand the hesitation. For me, I'm down, dude. I'm super down. Like to me, it's just whether it is an asset that may have some faults to him, again, like with the injuries and whatnot. There are not too terribly often in hockey where top end talent reaches the free agent market, and it's not even a guarantee right now. And that's something we still have to talk about, is like there's a very real chance this is all moot because Florida just brings him back.
Right, and that's a conversation we're going to have in segment 3, but just to add on to what you were saying too, it's like he's almost as if he's a victim of his own success, where he is such a high caliber player when he does play that he will command that much money. Again, I'm thinking in my head like $9 million, like as the high end to that ceiling, that because that is his ceiling and that is what he's going to command, that there's going to be a lot of teams that are going to be a little scared to give him that with the injury history, especially teams like Detroit who already have a top pair defenseman. You don't have that fear with Gavrikov because you know you can slot him in either the first or second pair. He's going to command less money. He's going to be good in that role. But Ekblad, it's like he's going to go to a team. The team that's going to get him if he doesn't re-sign with Florida has to be a team that has a RD1 slot, and the Red Wings don't have an RD1 slot. Again, I'm with you. I want Aaron Ekblad. If Detroit can find a way to swing Aaron Ekblad, you and I will be on here first to say this defensive core just got so much better and so much tougher.
Right.
But there are legitimate detractors to signing a guy like him. That would be, again, there's no guarantee that those negative things come to play. Like, he could never miss a game for the rest of his career. But history tells us he likely will, and it's just, how will that age? And that isn't going to be that will be in the back of our minds, at least, if they were to sign him. I think he makes this team better in the here and now, which is what we're asking for. If the Yzerman signs him, we celebrate it because it's the big swing that we needed. But like I said, in the back of my mind, those cons will be there, and I'll be watching it, right? It'll always be there. We're going to take another quick break. When we return, Scotty, let's talk about, one, why would he want to come to Detroit? And two, will Florida even let him walk? Because they have an interesting cap situation themselves. So stay tuned to segment 3 of Locked On Red Wings. Segment 3, Locked On Red Wings podcast. All right. So, Aaron Ekblad, very good hockey player. We've established that. Detroit Red Wings, going to have probably about $19 million in cash after they sign their cheap RFAs remaining. Have the cap space to sign him. Need better defense. But why would Ekblad want to leave Florida and come to Detroit? And that is going to be probably the question we ask for all of the main free agents, including him.
Yeah, and
tough to answer.
Right. It's obviously that's I think is maybe the biggest talking point here. I also think, even aside from the open market, if he makes it to there's just such a strong chance in my head that he just goes back to Florida. Man, like
Right.
that team is just an absolute wagon right now. He's a really big part of why they are an absolute wagon. I have a hard time believing they're going to shy away from giving him, at least in the ballpark of what value he is looking for in the open market.
He might even take less, like Reinhart did last year, to stay.
Yeah, man. I think it's a fair point. It's tough. Like it's a tough sell, and on top of that, you're talking about maybe a guy that wouldn't get. He don't get me wrong, he would get a ton of ice time here, but like, would he get as much as other places just because of the Sider situation? Like, I don't know how much of a factor that is for him, but that's something to think about as well, role and fit, et cetera. But at the end of the day, if the money's right, a lot of times that's the biggest factor for players. So I don't know. I really don't know. But I think that it is a tough sell to just outsell the Red Wings for Florida, period. Then that's not even opening up the can of worms of like the rest of the NHL versus Detroit.
Right. I think the biggest thing you can say, and this is no guarantee, but he is from Windsor. So a move back to Detroit would be a move incredibly close to home. And we have seen that have a huge impact on a lot of current Red Wings, right? Your Cops. Obviously, Larkin was drafted, but DeBrincat, Kane followed DeBrincat because they were such close friends. Like a lot of the players, Jeff Petrie, a lot of the players on this team, or were at least on this team up until this season, were here because of roots here or close by. And Windsor is obviously right across the border. It's a stone's throw from LCA. So you have that in, and that could play a role. But I still think unless that is the reason he comes here, you're probably looking at having to grossly overpay to convince him to come to a place like this, especially when you consider, like we talked about in segment 2, right? Why would Detroit want to pay that much for a guy who's going to end up being a top pair guy that's going to be on the second pair here in Detroit? Why would he want to come to a place where he's going to have a reduced role? He wants to be the guy. right? So I think that I would imagine at least he would want to be the guy. Some players, they're flexible to play wherever. But if you have the option of choosing where you go, why would you not go to a place where you're going to have the biggest role and impact you can have? And in Detroit, yeah, he'll still be on the power play. He'll still be on the penalty kill. He'll still get 20-plus minutes a night. But he'll be probably more than likely on the second pair behind Moritz Seider. Why would he want to do that other than just to come home? He might, and coming home might be the winning factor. But again, Florida has $19 million in open cap space, and they have decisions to make. It's not an easy decision to bring him back. But because they have Sam Bennett, I think they probably could make a play at keeping Brad Marchand because he fills that role so well. Nate Schmidt's a few years older, but he played 80 games for them this season. He was huge on their defensive core. They have a lot of guys on their roster that are pending free agents. They need a backup goaltender as well. So do they prioritize keeping their core together and bringing back an oft-injured Aaron Ekblad who has that huge impact and is going to need a lot of money, over keeping a guy like Sam Bennett, who has really blossomed this season and is like one of I think there is their goals leader in the playoffs this season. So that just becomes the question is kind of almost, Scotty, like what is the goal of Florida, right? Because, and I know I'm kind of monologuing here. It's a stream of consciousness, sorry. But if you sign Ekblad, unless he takes a team-friendly discount, but assuming he gets what his value is, if you sign Ekblad now, I think you're maximizing your cup window in the now. Because when he's here, he's so impactful. But it might behoove Florida to let him walk and keep Bennett and Marchand. Well, Marchand's 37. He's no young spring chicken either. But keep a little bit extra cap space on to add to the roster in order to maximize that cup window. Obviously, you're losing 50 top 4 games out of Ekblad every year for at least the next 3 years while he's still in his prime. But it may be best for them to let him walk and use that cap space elsewhere to kind of extend that cap window as much as possible. Again, and I could just be flat out wrong, right? But this is just me thinking out loud.
Yeah, I think I would be stunned if they prioritized Marchand over Ekblad. Again, because of what you mentioned, the age thing there.
He just plays so well. Like he's still getting to the puck first in the corners.
Yeah,
he's
a
still
great fit for them too. I know it took a while for that to finally click, but once it did, man, full steam ahead type of thing. Yeah. So I don't know. I think the other thing with Ekblad is he is still, as you mentioned, he's still in his late 20s. Like you could sign him to a 6-year deal and you wouldn't even take him past his age 35 year. So I think that there is still a lot of value to be had there. And I think it might just be as simple as, if they do sign him, if he's on the ice, they're probably going to work out pretty well for him.
Right. Well, and you think, too, back to the trade deadline or just before, they acquired Seth Jones, who has another 3 years remaining at $7 million. A lot of people speculated is that it? Is that the decision that, they're acquiring a guy who is about the same age with another 3 years. It's going to end at year 33 with Seth Jones rather than try to extend for a max length contract for Ekblad. So I think that is a factor, too. It's like, does that acquisition of that big contract for another big-bodied defenseman say something? And Seth Jones has had a nice playoffs, too. It's nice to see Seth Jones kind of return to form after leaving Chicago a little bit because when he was with Columbus, he was so good. Norris Trophy levels good. But he's a very fun conversation. That is, I think, where I'll end it. If we sign Aaron Ekblad, I will be thrilled, but I'll be obviously concerned, too, with those downsides. He is probably the most fun conversation we've had in terms of free agency because of all those factors.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Scotty, do you got any final thoughts?
No, I mean, I appreciate you for holding down the fort over the last week.
It's easy for me, man. I just open my mouth and I don't stop until about 25.
Yeah. Trust me. Go watch me do that every day too if you want. No, yeah, it was a rough week, but I really do greatly appreciate you and Jake Reetma over at Locked On Tigers for allowing me to do what I need to do and take care of everything kind of last week and whatnot. I love you to death, and I appreciate the support, I guess is the word I'm going to go with. Yeah.
That sounds like a good word.
I'm gonna go with that. I appreciate the support, obviously, that by doing that, but also, like just conversations we had and off camera stuff too. So yeah. Glad to be back though, man. Glad to be back. Glad to be back into the normal swing of things. And we're approaching June is when some stuff starts picking up, so it'll hopefully be pretty fun.
I was just talking to Allison about that earlier today, and I was like, man, a month from now we'll finally have like real content to talk about. Like, obviously this is good content too, speculating, but it's just like it feels like your topics kind of shrink, your topic options, and it's like once you get to June,
it's a different player, but it's a similar conversation about like, you know what I mean? Like we have a
same
format,
flow,
right? That's being followed, even though the conversation and the subject matter changes. So I think, once we get into June is where there's finally, we'll have actual headlines to kind of go over.
And finally, Scotty, Team USA winning the gold for the first time since 1933, I think it was, which when I saw that, like I follow the World Championships when it's going on, but a lot of times they take place in Europe. And so those games happen. I mean, they were happening at like 10:30 in the morning. I'm in the office. I can't really watch them. So when I saw the
2:30 in the morning,
10:30. Did I say 2:30?
No, you probably said 10:30. I just heard 2:30, but I was
okay.
Whoa, that is.
I'm that dedicated to making service calls to car dealerships. That's how dedicated I am. But so when I saw the graphic that it's the first time they've won gold since 1933, and plus with all the different international competitions that happen, like juniors of the Olympics and of now the Four Nations, like it's hard to keep track which tournaments USA has won and hasn't won. I was like, oh my God, it's been almost a century since they last won this tournament, pre-World War II. It was awesome. And of course, it was the year Dylan Larkin couldn't make it, which figures. But Tage Thompson, man, had an incredible.
He was busy, I think, in 33.
Yeah, I'm talking about this season, you ass. But Tage Thompson had an incredible tournament. It sucks that he's trapped in Buffalo.
Well, I mean, the goal at the end there was, he's pretty good.
And yeah, pretty good. And Casper and Raymond had incredible tournaments. Simon Edmonds had good tournaments too. Raymond, I talked about this the other day. Raymond played on a line with Nylander and moved to the left wing. So it's like, he's capable of doing it, and he scored 2 goals in that game. Maybe
good
Marner on the right wing.
Being pushed there. Yep.
I'm just saying. Casper finished, I think, a point per game in round robin play before they were eliminated. And then Denmark defeating Canada 2-1. Not just tying it, but taking the lead in the final 2 minutes of that game.
Dude. Just the best.
There were some really incredible storylines in that tournament, especially in the knockout rounds.
Yeah,
the World Championship.
Yeah.
It is, and it's a shame it happens at the same time as the playoffs, so it doesn't get a lot of attention over here on our side of the planet.
Right.
Because it's a fun tournament, and a lot of NHL players are there. The fact that Crosby, McKinnon, and Fleury, 3 guys who are future Hall of Famers, right, got eliminated by Denmark, which had 1 NHL player on it, is awesome. Incredible stuff.
It's
just the best. So, tournament was a lot of fun. Sorry we didn't cover it more, but Casper had a good tournament. Raymond had a good tournament. Gustafsson had a good tournament, as well as Simon Edvinsson. So, it was fun. Scotty? Well, we already did final thoughts, so I guess we ball, and we'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Same time, same place. It's your team every day.